or the last couple of days when I've been putting together this presentation and these adventure festivals, I was trying to think of how I wanted to phrase and do everything, and whether to do kind of a trip report and show my adventure down around South America, which I talk a little bit about there, or kind of a different outlet. And I think I took the alternate path this time. And I think for a lot of us, we choose to try and find adventure. And then for some of us, adventure tends to find us. So I wanted to kind of go through, let me do a screen share here and see if I can get this going. All right, view. And kind of go through a little bit of the life of Kirk Williams, the adventurer of sorts. So, I kind of fast forward a little bit here. This is kind of coming into college days, and my dog Bella. And one thing, some of these key moments that led me to where I'm at and what I'm doing in the van and why I'm traveling the world, all come back to, when I first traveled. The first time I left the U.S. was in college. I went to Africa, into Ghana. And that's when I started realizing how big the world is. I was able to see, something I'd never been out of the country. And I go over here and I'm working on this boatyard, and it just completely blew my mind with the rest of the world. And I guess the travel bug that everybody talks about is what bit me at that point in time. And when I came back, I knew that the camera was my tool to see the world. I wanted somehow to share with others what I had seen. And so my goal in life was always, how do I travel the world, take pictures, and do something meaningful with it? And I was kind of pursuing that path. I was also an adventure athlete. I rode motorcycles. This is to give me some street cred with all the rest of you out there who are moto guys. I love motorcycles. If I could, I would be doing everything in my life basically on a motorcycle. I rode mountain bikes, motorcycles, dirt bikes, four-wheelers, jet skis, anything with a motor I loved, but especially with two wheels. Mountain bikes and motorcycles were my passion. And, here I am mountain biking in 2008, I guess it was. I came to Colorado to ride bikes and was an elite racer until, of course, one day I landed wrong. Nobody wants to see this picture, but all of us adventure athletes realize that this is a risk. The crazy thing is the way I broke my neck is what ended up happening. Was on a routine ride with friends that I did all the time. It wasn't some big nasty accident. And so I kind of have this philosophy that if it's going to happen, it's going to happen one way or the other, whether it's falling out of bed when you're sleeping at night, or crashing on a bike or a motorcycle car accident. It can be a number of things. It's how you continue to move forward after that happens that's really important. And this is kind of when the real adventure found me part of life. Rehab, something that I did for 2 years after my accident. A little quick thing here, if you can see me on the other screen, but my hands don't work anymore. So the biggest challenge for me after breaking my neck wasn't necessarily not being able to walk again, but not being able to use your hands. Somebody who was a mechanic, who worked at a bike shop, who used to do construction work, who was very hands-on, all of a sudden, I need help with everything. That was by far the most trying part of this whole kind of experience. So what I did right after my accident, or soon thereafter, was trying to find what made my clock tick, how I could find adventure, how I could feel like myself again. And through doing this, I went into all these different sports. I tried, that was wheelchair rugby. This one is skiing, obviously, in Crested Butte. I went ziplining through the rainforests of Costa Rica with my brother. This was huge because I realized I could do international travel. I just needed somebody with me, and I needed to figure out kind of new ways to do it. I tried paragliding, flying, I tried hand cycling. This is with my friend Topher, in the rain, water skiing, kind of you name it. So for the first maybe 5 years post-injury or more, I would say yes all the time. If somebody called and said, Kirk, do you want to try whatever? I would say, yes, let's try it. And then I would slowly from there narrow down the things that I loved the most. Mountain biking being one of them. I broke my neck mountain biking. I love mountain biking. I raced my whole life. I still ride. This is me at the Grand Canyon riding a few years back on this really cool custom-made off-road hand cycle. It's electric assist, so I can still kind of get a workout, but go a lot further. scuba diving here. And then ultimately the razor. This was the coolest tool I found right after my accident. What you can't see here in the picture, so I actually have a tie-down ratchet strap holding me in that seat. This was months after leaving the hospital. I didn't even have my driver's license yet, but I was fortunate to have the resources to be able to get this razor. We put hand controls in it, and I was, doing donuts in the snow in front of my house. So pretty cool. And then the ultimate turning point for us overland crowd was me getting my driver's license again. This is my first van, and a lot of people see me nowadays going into South America in a van, and they think, oh wow, he bought a van, just headed down there. That's cool. How'd he do that? Must be nice. And I think there's a big backstory, and that's what I kind of wanted to do with this presentation a little bit, was tell that this isn't my first van, my first trip, and a lot went into this. And this picture is my first van, and when it all started kind of for me. And what I realized was, with the van, the van life craze, everything that's going on now, I didn't really choose to drive a van. This was 2010, I guess, or 11. And instead, the van was the only vehicle I could actually drive with my wheelchair. But what I realized pretty quick was the van opened up a lot more doors for me. Now I had a way to travel, to get around, to go see friends and everything. But more importantly, I had a place to sleep. And that's my girl, Bella, of course, on the bed, that's basically her bed. She lets me sleep in it from time to time. But, I could now go out camping with my friends again. I could go sleep under the stars. And speaking of rehab, like, this was the strongest thing for me. Independence. I was able to get back outside and exploring and feeding my adventurous soul. So then the van became kind of my new tool. I used the van. I towed the razor with me everywhere I went, and I just rode. I was back out riding trails with buddies. I was able to get my adrenaline rush, and it was basically my new mountain bike. Everything that had happened pre-injury was happening post-injury, but with different tools. Let's see here. This is in Moab, Utah, riding. And then van 2.0. So like all of us do, we're scouring Craigslist for anything. And I would type in 4x4 wheelchair van, which, as you can imagine, you don't get a whole lot of hits on. Coincidentally, I actually found one. In this van, named Tiberius, I ended up driving up around Alaska. So this was my second van. This is a few years, maybe 4 or 5 years after my other van. And I found this, and I modified it. I put a bed in the back and did kind of a pretty simple build out. But I did a Kickstarter campaign to go to Alaska and see, parts of the world that I'd never seen before. I had originally wanted to do it on a motorcycle, but because of what had happened, the van was kind of the next best thing. What was cool, I actually towed the razor up there. I picked up one of my best friends who was living up there at the time, who I used to mountain bike with. And so we carried his bikes on the back. There's Bella, the razor, and I. And what we would do is we would put his bike on the rack on the back of the razor. I would drive him up to the top of these mountain passes, and then we would ride together, cruising back down these trails, which was amazing, because I'm now not on a mountain bike, but I'm riding with my old mountain bike buddies. He's with me. We're exploring somewhere new. I had this sense of independence and the sense of freedom. I was able to see places I could, only imagine. This is just kind of a shot of our little camping setup, making some blueberry pancakes. And then the inside of the van. And what I really want to convey with this presentation, and with people who see me now traveling in the van that I currently have, is you don't need this fancy vehicle. Like, I did almost, similar travel in something that I put a bed in the back, as you can see, a Rubbermaid cabinet, and then a 12-volt cooler. And that's really all you need in a Coleman stove. So I always push people who maybe are scared to try overland travel to just use whatever vehicle they have or they can afford. Don't spend so much time trying to buy something nice that you never get on the road. That's against the point. And what I have now, I'm fortunate to have, but it's because of these other vehicles and the time that led me to, getting this. One more kind of glory shot. This was a light bulb moment for me. This Alaska trip kind of made me realize the potential that a vehicle that I can camp and live out of would give me. Now I'm not on a motorcycle, you know, and which is irrelevant kind of because I'm now able to travel. I'm able to camp. I'm able to do everything. And as a quadriplegic, because of where I broke my neck, I wasn't even sure I'd be able to get out of bed on my own, shower on my own. I mean, it took me 2 years to be able to go to the bathroom on my own again, to kind of put some perspective. And here I am in Alaska, riding my razor on a glacier where very few people ever get to go, and camping and with my best friend. And it was just this like, oh, angel singing kind of moment of, holy cow, you can do this, Kirk. You know, wherever you can drive this vehicle, you can go. So I came back. I put that van, I had some issues with it, so I put it for sale for almost double what I paid for it and sold it the next day, which was just like, here you go, you know, perfect. And I rolled that over into van 3.0. This is Spock. This is the van I have now. And this vehicle was the first van I could build. And I kind of talk about this in the video, but from the ground up, how I wanted it. I could actually put a stove inside. I knew where I wanted the outlets. I knew how tall my cabinets, how high the bed, how much space I needed between the seats, all these different things. And I could design it to work for me. You know, this was the platform that I then wanted to drive to South America. This van was kind of purpose built for international travel. I'm very lucky here in Colorado where I live. There's a state funded program that I basically bought the vehicle and then the modifications were paid for. So I got, you know, quite a good chunk of change. I won't say the exact number, but from the state that made this possible. You can see Bella here looking at the van. And then here's kind of as it's being built out in Oregon. This is kind of the rear. I did drawers under the bed so that I can access everything. You know, what's nice is after having 2 other vans and traveling for 10 years, I knew kind of what worked for me, what setup I wanted. And so, you know, people who maybe meet me at this stage of my life may think I just kind of bought this van and took off, but there's so much more that went into it. You know, it was really catering 10 years of tips, tricks, every cooking utensil, everything I can think of into this little action-packed vehicle that then, you know, I could travel the world. Here's kind of a shot of the inside. I sleep in the back, a sink I can roll under, you know, stove that flips up, everything down to the lift. This lift not many people have seen before, but it's called a super arm. What's nice, it just swings you in and out, so you don't need a platform. It'll let you out in any sort of terrain. And so what do? First trip, straight down to Baja, Mexico, of course. I really wanted to kind of test the van before going to South America. So I cruised down to Mexico and let me see, I brought some friends with me. You know, when I do international travel, I usually bring somebody along because you never know what's going to happen. Point in case, you know, I wanted to test the van. Turns out a 9,000-pound van in sand dunes don't really get along too well. But you know, I had a Max Trax. I knew this was going to happen, and I was okay with it because I had support and help with me. But you know, the other things we didn't know what were going to happen is, for instance, my friend Oleg here, who we met actually on the trip, is helping us. I have a power sliding door, and it's run by a chain through the whole van. And of course, the master link on the washboard roads in Mexico rattled out. So what he's using here, you can kind of see, is dental floss wrapped around this chain to thread it through these cabinets and around to be able to put in a new master link. Not something we saw that we would need to do, but of course, you know, we also learned what tools we needed to bring to South America, which here I'm using a cell phone holder that's clamped around a tube, cinder block we found on the side of the road, and a breaker bar in order to pull this tube out from inside the floor. And we had to do that because that cabinet we couldn't get behind to fish the dental floss chain through the door to open the door. You know, kind of a crazy whole situation here, but live and learn, you know, and part of what I do in travel is it helps because I have such a mechanical mindset. You know, unfortunately, I'm not able to do a lot of the work myself, but that's part of the adventure, is meeting people, you know, having to reach out. In a lot of ways, I interact with a lot more locals than most people because I need help. and I have to be vulnerable. I have to ask them for help. Or, you know, I just make sure I bring somebody with me. And here are just kind of some glamour shots, Mexico, beachside camping. You know, this is where I give myself a pat on the back and I say, Kirk, you know what? You figure this out. Like, you never thought you'd be able to live independently again. And now here you are, you know, in Mexico or Patagonia or wherever, traveling and doing cooking, cleaning, going to the bathroom, everything on your own. You know, it's a pretty powerful realization. Another shot of Mexico. I'm gonna zoom through some of these photos pretty quick here, but I did some Spanish courses. This is, you know, studying Spanish, and then kind of another realization of this is me pre-injury and post-injury. You know, the tools are different, but the experience, the adventure is the same. And I think that's something all of us adventurers kind of learn is that, let me go back, is that, you know, when things go wrong, you kind of have to just keep moving forward. All of us have that kind of philosophy. But so one thing I really wanted to do when traveling, and I realized this after going to Mexico and after living in Ghana, is that when I travel, I wanted to give back to the people whose countries I go through. And through doing this, I worked with the Walkabout Foundation to raise like $20,000 to send, you know, the goal was to send in a container full of wheelchairs down to South America when I was down there, because here I am driving through in this fancy vehicle, and the least I can, you know, some people, for instance, this gentleman doesn't even have access to a wheelchair, but with organizations like the Walkabout, you know, we're able to get them up and moving. So I'm zoom through a little bit some more. They do a lot over in Africa. This is me just kind of having the realization, okay, this brings us up to speed. So now South America, this is 1 year ago, last month, really. I had planned to go down, drive from, as I said in the video, from Santiago, Chile, down to Ushuaia, and then all the way potentially back to the US. Let's see where I'm at time-wise. And I can jump off anytime here, but I chose, that was my brother, to come with me. And we, you know, loaded everything in the shipping container. We had to let air out of the tires. As you can see, it's a crazy tight fit. Fortunately, I built this van with this in mind. And then here we are, we finally made it to South America. Some glory shots. So what I'm doing with Impact Overland with my brother is to teach people about what can be achieved having a vehicle that you can live out of for those of us with the means. So, you know, whether it's, you know, a school bus, a van, you know, a motorcycle, anything, but especially people with disabilities, how I can live as a quadriplegic and see the world, make the world accessible, while also fundraising and helping bringing mobility to others along the way through the Walkabout Foundation. And I'll just zoom through a few of these photos. These are just some of these glory shots that were beautiful. Clay learning how to ride his motorcycle. You know, and it worked great riding with my brother because that's kind of a story in itself of us getting stuck. But because, you know, we both had our own space, I'm very mechanically minded, so we could fix things. Let me see here, I'm almost done. And long story short, we went down, we saw, we conquered, and then unfortunately on the way back up, when we made it back to Buenos Aires, the coronavirus started. And all right, so moving on to kind of the last photo here. Yeah, this is, so we made it to Buenos Aires, and then we heard about COVID and spent kind of 4 months locked in this apartment before we pulled the plug to come home. So I know that's a lot to digest in 20 minutes. Reese and Matt, if you're there, I don't know if that all